This podcast is brought to you by the Empowerment Project. Research proves that empowerment self-defense training makes you safer, period. I want you to have a great self-defense toolkit so you can create strong boundaries, speak with confidence, and take up all the space that you deserve in the world. We'll hear stories from survivors and find out what worked for them and why. We'll interview leaders in the field and talk about tips, concepts, and really easy things that you could do to make yourself safer and interrupt the cycle of violence. I've taught self-defense classes for over 30 years, and I promise to teach you everything I know. Ultimately, I'm going to want you to get some in-person training, but a great empowerment self-defense class is more than just the physical skills. The list of things I want to teach you is endless, so let's get to it. My name is Sylvia Smart, and welcome to the Empowerment Project. Hello, listeners. I'm very happy to have you with me today, and I think you're going to really enjoy meeting my guest, who is Ashlyn Johnson, who has been training martial arts for a very, very, very long time, and she will tell us her story. And then she's also teaching empowerment self-defense. She's researching about empowerment self-defense, and she's got an amazing self-defense success story. So we've got some really cool stuff to talk about. Ashlyn, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for the invite.
You're welcome. So I gave you a little mini interview. Could you tell us about I really want to hear more about your martial arts kind of journey, and then I'll ask you more questions. But how did you start off down this road?
All right. Well, I feel like that's a bit of a long story, so I'll try to crunch it. If I start overdoing it, please just shut me up.
Okay.
But I've been obsessed with martial arts since I was a little kid. I remember begging my mom to take me. So she signed me up for the Taekwondo. My parents ran a dental office when I was a kid, and there was a Taekwondo studio just like one street behind them. So they dropped me off over there while they were working. And I think I was about 4 at the time, and I was super excited. And I must not have gone more than, I don't know, a few times. One of the times they brought out like a rubber knife and came at me, and I was convinced that they were trying to kill me and ran and hid behind the dumpster. So my parents came to get me. So that was the end of that experience.
Oh my gosh. But look at you now.
Then around age 11 is when I really kind of got into martial arts more steady, started kind of training in that capacity. And then 15, I started branching out more to like the sport, martial sport. So started boxing. I had some professional boxing bouts many years and many pounds ago. And then interestingly, around, I don't remember the exact year, I'm bad with timelines, around 2008, I wanted to go to Thailand and watch some fights in Lumpini Stadium, and I almost got kidnapped in Bangkok. And so that was really the impetus for me to kind of get out of the martial art and the martial sport world and really start focusing on the self-defense components. So
okay, before you go on with this part of your story, I want to mention to people we're gonna swing back around, and we're gonna get details about the story from Thailand. But tell us, what did you do next? So you were thinking, okay, I need to switch this up a little bit. And then where'd you go with that?
Yeah. So then, well, I actually ended up back in the martial sport realm, at an MMA kind of gym, because that's what I had access to. Where I was living wasn't exactly what I wanted. I was looking for something different. And I met one of the guys there, a jiu-jitsu teacher, who actually also did Kali and Silat. So that's where I got interested. I had finally, first seen that. So he invited me up to where he was training that. And I really kind of dove into that rabbit hole. And I really liked that there was a lot more self-defense applicability there, both from, physical self-defense standpoint, but also that's when I first started really learning about, situational awareness and, other skills rather than just, boxing or more sport, kind of uses. So I just kind of went down that rabbit hole. And since then, I've been training Kali and Silat since around 2010. I've trained in the Philippines. I've trained in Borneo, Indonesia, and it's just been a whole lot of fun.
That's so awesome. And that's something you and I share
Yeah,
because since 1987, I've been training a Silat from Indonesia. And so it's very cool that you found that. And can we go back and could you tell us more about that success story? I mean, it sounds kind of amazing. What happened in Thailand? And thanks for sharing it with us too in advance.
sure. So I'm going to say it definitely wasn't exactly a self-defense success story. I guess it was in a way that nothing terrible happened. Um, So I was, like I said, I was in Bangkok, and I feel like, I was kind of exploring the city, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool, pretty cool. But it was a whole lot of, at least where I was, it was very touristy. A lot of the malls that just had, the high end brands and expensive things. And I'm like, I wanted to experience, you know, just the culture, and, um, not like just some, westernized mall.
Yeah.
So I started venturing out, venturing out, venturing out. And it was funny because I, got in after, super long flight and got in my hotel and got comfortable. And I started walking out the hotel, and there were some ladies working at the desk, and they stopped me, and they were like, you can't go out by yourself. Like, you need like a man with you. And I just remember getting this like little attitude, and I was, young, and, like I said, I was boxing and that kind of thing at the time. And I was thinking, what do you mean I can't go out by myself? Like, I'm an American. I can go out by myself, as a female. That just never, it just seemed to me like they were just saying, just because I was a woman, I couldn't go out by myself. It never even dawned on me that it was a safety issue.
Exactly. Like when people say that stuff to me, or probably to any of us who have some of this skill set, we're like, what? No, I can do that. I'm fine.
Never even occurred to me. I just thought that for some reason that they just felt I should have someone with me, and I was by
Right.
myself. So I was just like, whatever. And I just went out. And so I just kept going further and further, out. And, then people are trying to sell you stuff, of course. And I don't remember. I took like some cabs, and I took like, some different rides further out. And I ended up in this like market, and it was basically, I don't know, I feel like it was something that you would see on a movie, or something like sheets, hanging between, like picnic tables kind of, and those were set up with, like whatever people were selling. I remember the sunglasses one very well, and I'll tell you the why in a moment.
Okay.
But, just basically like a put together kind of strip mall. Some of it had like actual, building indoors, but much of it was just, outdoor, kind of like a flea market kind of thing,
Yeah.
in between like two alleyways. So it was like great place for me to be, right? Never remotely occurred to me. I'm like, this is fine.
Sure.
So I'm shopping, and I was finally excited because I'm like, okay, I finally got out of, just the mall area that has the same stuff, I could buy at home. I'm like, I can actually, see some like, authentic things, and going through shopping, having a good time. And then I just feel like pressure on my back. And then I turn, and then instantly pressure on both of my sides. And three huge, I mean, I'm 5'3". So three like huge men. One of them had his whole body pressed up to my back, and me pressed into the table in front of me. And then
Wow.
two large men, one on each of my shoulders. And I just remember, because it was the sunglasses table in front of me.
Mm.
And I just remember looking at the guy who was selling the sunglasses, and I don't think I even said anything. I think I was just frozen. But I just remember, like, in my mind, like pleading with him, like, help me, do something.
Right. Do
I'm
you
just,
see what's happening here?
right. And so I'm just looking at him, and I remember he picked up a pair of sunglasses, and he goes, "Sunglasses?" And I
Oh
was just
my
like, "Oh God,
God.
like no one's going to help me." And of course, all I learned was like, please and thank you and food. Never remotely occurred to me to learn how to ask for help
Yeah. Yeah.
or police. It was before, I had like a cell phone that would work in that country. Like I didn't have any way to get help. So
Can I stop you just right
yeah,
there on because I think it's a point of fact, a point of information that is so important, which is you have this martial background and you freeze. And
mm-hmm.
and so many of us, when we're in a self-defense situation, our first response is to freeze because we're in shock. And so often we interpret that as something shameful that, if only like, I shouldn't have frozen. And I hear this over and over again. And I just want to say, like, if you, Ashlyn Johnson, this badass woman with this skill, freeze, like, it is okay. It is natural. It is what's important to know is what to do next, which is why we practice self-defense and things like that. And so I just wanted to just call it out to my listeners, like there's no shame in having frozen. Sometimes it's the safest thing we can do. Sometimes it's the most self-protective thing we can do. And sometimes it's the only thing we can do until we can gather ourselves. And it's okay. So I just wanted to mention that and say that for everyone who's listening. And I know you already know that.
Yeah, no, thank you for pointing that out because it's actually interesting. I was actually at another self-defense training a few weeks ago, and there was a woman there kind of, newer to this work, and she had, I don't know how we had got on this topic, but we were, talking on this a bit, and she had basically asked me, and she's like, well, why didn't you do this or something? And I said, actually, I think it was the freezing that saved me in this situation.
Yeah.
It's that moment of stopping to take that moment to think, what can I do next?
Yeah.
Because with the skill sets I had at the time, and even with the skill sets I have now, and I know you've been training, some of the same, martial arts for years. And even looking back, I don't know that there's like, there's no physical win in this situation that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
So I look back, and so when these guys surrounded me, and like I said, I froze for a minute, and I was looking at the guy, in front of me at the sunglasses booth for, in my mind, like, help me. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't going to get help, but I couldn't communicate with anybody.
Wow.
And so I turn around, and like I said, these men were huge, and they were dressed very like tactical, paramilitary,
Wow.
like huge men. And the guy said, in an accent, I don't remember his name. He said, I am somebody so-and-so. We are from Iran. You are coming with us. And they grabbed my arms and started like leading me toward the alleyway. And I'm like, at the time I didn't know. And I was, young. But now looking back, I'm like, where was my situational awareness that, I'm in Bangkok, and I never even noticed three huge Middle Eastern men, in this, market in Thailand. I mean, I didn't even know
Right.
anyone was there until they already had a hold of me. And so in that moment of like freezing, of
Okay,
course,
wait, hold on.
yeah,
I just want to say something like A, jet lag.
yeah,
B, you're in someplace brand new. C, you're not speaking the language. D, you're super distracted.
yeah.
Like,
So many things went
it's
wrong, right?
okay. It's okay that your situational awareness was on low mode. That's okay. Like,
But it was
it
a learning
happens.
experience. I try not to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like that's another reason for people to be listening to your story because we're all learning as we are listening. So keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
No. So I'm just sitting there thinking, and like I said, I'm trying to think of how old I was. I must have, I would have been early 20s. And like I said, I was boxing and those kind of things at the time, but you think boxing is categorized by weight classes, for a reason. I'm definitely not
Mm-hmm.
boxing three men twice my size.
Yeah.
So I'm just going through like, what am I going to do? And so that's why I say I think that moment of freezing and buffering and just, okay, what are my options and what can I do here is what saved me, because they had my arms and the one was on my back. And I'm looking around at all these people, in the market, and no one seemed to notice that there was an issue. No one noticed or no one cared. They're just selling stuff. And I'm like, in my mind screaming, but I don't think anything's, nothing's coming
Coming out of your mouth. Yeah.
And so they're pushing me toward the alleyway. And all I could think was, if I go, and there was only alleyway on both sides, but I'm like, if I go in the alleyway, like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if something happens here, I'm going to get killed right here in the market, so that my parents will know, and they're not going to spend the next 15 years trying to find me wherever I get dragged off to. So that's what I decided in the moment, that if I'm not going to make it out, someone's going to find my body here in the market. And
okay, can I stop you
Yeah.
one time? You thought you were going to just be able to tell your story. Sorry. But yes, like, this is what happens when we can take a beat and take a breath. Like, you could see so clearly, like, don't go there. And we often, as you know, when we're teaching empowerment self-defense, we're saying these things like, yeah, you need to have people around you. Don't let yourself be escorted to isolation, into a car. Like, you want to keep in a public place as much as possible. So well done. That is see, we're all, it is a success. See, I told you how to do that. It is a self-defense success story already. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and there was just no doubt that these guys had nothing but bad intentions. I mean, they just clearly did not belong there. I don't know what their original purpose of, being there was, but it was just nothing good. So then in that moment, I'm just thinking, okay, there's no way I'm fighting these guys. Clearly I'm not getting help. And so, this whole time they've got my arms and they're leading me, out of this, busy market to where I see, nothing and nothing on both sides, alleyway and then street, and like, just not going to be good. And so I thought, what can I do at this moment? So, and it couldn't have been long, right, that I'm like frozen and kind of buffering in my mind, maybe a couple steps away from the table I was at, and, just heading in that direction. And so when the guy kind of introduced himself and, said whatever his name was, and, we are from Iran, you're coming with us, and like grabbed my arms, so that after that moment of buffering, I thought, okay, well, the only thing I can do is pretend to cooperate. And so I was like, oh, really? You guys going to a party? What are you doing? And I just like started talking to them, and they let go of me. And they're like, oh, okay, we're going over here. And so then instead of holding my arms, they were like walking with me.
Okay,
and
wait. So
this
is a technique that we teach, which is to comply. And
Mhm.
so what happened, I mean, it sounds like what happened is you did such a good job of acting that they're like, oh, good. Oh, okay. Well, she's coming with us. So they lightened up their grip.
Yeah. So at that moment, they
Wow.
had let go of me. They're not far from me, but they had let go of me. And so I just kept talking to them. I'm like, oh, really? What are you guys doing here? I'm just like chatting with them. And as soon as there was like a moment, gap between them, I just ran.
Wow.
And so I ran, and this is where it turns into, some like bad, martial arts movie on Netflix or something. But at this point, obviously, they know I'm onto them. So I'm like running through this marketplace. I think I destroyed, a few, sheets between.
Oh my gosh, it's like a James Bond race scene, like chase scene.
This is where it goes bad. Yeah. I'm like,
Wow.
destroying the market. They literally split up. They're following me. I'm ducking behind places. Like, they're still coming at me. I kind of hope, I break that grip and, start running, and they're just going to forget it and move on. No such luck. That did not happen.
Wow.
And there was nothing, again, but alley went either way. So I was confined to this tiny, fairly small marketplace area, and I couldn't go anywhere. And I would hide behind somewhere, and they'd split up, and then, they would be there, and I'd be running again. And it was
Oh my
terrifying.
gosh.
And I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, what's going to happen? And so I made it then into like one side of it was actual buildings. So I made it into one of the actual buildings that had a door, and I ran in there. It was a purse shop. And I was just, in a panic, and I saw, them, I ducked down, and I saw them in the glass. I saw them like three split up, and they were looking in various places. And I like ran behind this woman's desk, like the cashier desk. And so she probably thought, I was crazy. But there was a little boy there, her son, and he was in a little Catholic school uniform. He couldn't have been very old. I don't know, maybe 12. I don't know. But he spoke a little bit of English. Was learning English at his school, and I was able to tell him what was happening. And he told his mom, and they started trying to come in the purse shop, and she put the clothes. She said, "Close, close, close." And they were still like looking, and I was hiding behind her desk, but I was still stuck there because there was
Wow.
nowhere to get out. And so
Yeah.
finally she knew what was going on, and she kind of, held them back a little bit. The little boy took me out a back door, took me out another route, helped me get to another kind of strip mall area location. I stayed there. I hid there for quite a while because I knew that they weren't going away easily because they hadn't up to that point and they were still looking.
Yeah.
And so I hid there for a while, and slowly I made it back to a street where I could find a cab and get back. And after that, I paid the taxi driver to stay with me the rest of the time I was in Thailand.
Wow, that is amazing.
And I didn't leave the country by myself again until 2014.
Oh. What an incredible so like what was up when you said it's not really a success story like
Well,
at the beginning? What do you mean
well,
by that?
when you said the self-defense success story, it is, and that, I survived. I just meant there wasn't going to be any like cool. I didn't, punch anyone in the face, or I have no doubt that if I would have tried something like that off the bat, I wouldn't have gotten a chance
Right.
again.
Right. But
Um,
yes, and yet you are here and you did survive and you were so crafty.
so
Wow. That's a great story.
so I try to always like, now I don't know, maybe it's good caution, maybe it's a bit of paranoia, but the next time I traveled alone, I went to the Philippines to
Mhm.
train Kakwa Pares in Cebu City. And I, would try to kind of make a friend on every corner, because a lot of times people were there asking for money, those kind of things. They were in the same place. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to like make a friend on every corner, and I would watch them get to the next corner. And granted, it was more, it just, the area I was in, I planned a little better, knew a little better, those kind of
Yeah.
things. But just the situational awareness was much different, being older and having experienced that.
That's so great. So we're all learning from you too, because I love two things. I love one that we're learning from you that um, that it's great to see and be seen on the streets when you're moving and to it sounds like let people know who you are, where you're going, like make sure that you're paying attention as you travel. And the thing that I think I love the most is that this really frightening, deeply scary situation that happened to you in, did you say 2010?
I'm guessing it was around 2008
Oh,
because,
around 2008.
yeah,
Okay. So that didn't stop you from traveling alone. I
for a little
love
while it
that.
did.
Yeah, for a little while, but then you are back and you're having experiences that you can be safe and travel alone.
Mhm.
And thank goodness for the situational awareness that you had, that you could run into that purse shop, that you could, the luck, it's a little bit of luck to run into that kid who spoke English and the
Right.
mom who got it and was also a little badassery, like taking care of you and
Mm.
closing the shop. Really cool story. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you.
That's cool. And then, so when we were chatting, you also shared kind of how this experience and your new love of Kali and Penjat Silat, um, in tandem with the work that you do, um, really, really helped you when you were posed with a client or person on the job who was experiencing something that you felt. I'm sorry, I'm speaking very slowly because I'm trying to put this together in my mind, but that this background that you have of the skill set and this experience when you were faced with someone at work who was having an issue, you could see how you could help.
Yeah. So, and I really didn't get the opportunity to take it to that point, but it was interesting for me that she kind of led me down this path a bit more because, like you've heard up to this point, martial arts, martial sports, the whole gambit has been kind of my passion, my hobby for much of my life, but I never really saw it linking up with any of my work. And I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I work with a lot of patients with a variety of mental health conditions, but where I work, PTSD is probably one of the most common um, you know complaints that I deal with my patients. And I had someone who had a trauma history and had been assaulted, and was standing in the middle of their home um, all day while their spouse was at work. 'Cause they were too afraid to be alone, with their phone dialed on 911 on one hand and a stun gun in the other hand, not able to go near windows or doors, because they were just, day in, day out, constantly living in fear. And just so, as I met with this patient over time, and of course, we got other things on board, medications on board, and dealt with that from other perspectives. But just at one point I started having a conversation with them about potentially self-defense training, and they felt like that would be something that would be really helpful to them. And prior to that, it had just never remotely occurred to me that self-defense training could be used in a healthcare capacity. So I started kind of diving into the literature, which prior to that I didn't even know there was any
Mm,
academic literature on this topic, and finding a lot of research by Hollander, Charlene Sin, and others, and the work that they've done with empowerment self-defense. And I was just absolutely fascinated. So I'm just at this point in my career hoping to kind of tie my passion for martial arts and self-defense, and my work with mental health together, and hope that I can help people get past these traumas. So right now I'm looking at doing some needs assessments and implementing some empowerment self-defense courses in like high risk populations, and populations who've been traumatized, or could hopefully really benefit from that.
that's really wonderful, because I think the research shows that taking empowerment self-defense classes is empowering, and it
Mhm.
does lead to lives lived with less fear. I
Mhm.
remember teaching a class, and one of the people in my class said that every night that their spouse is away and traveling, they lock themselves in their closet and
Mm.
just stay awake all night because they're so afraid. It's a similar story to
Yeah.
yours, and they were hoping that by taking this self-defense class and learning these skills that it would help. And they came back to me and they said that they don't sleep in the closet anymore.
Oh, that's great.
I know. I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal storytelling
Mhm.
that what we do does help, and I'm really happy that you're going to get some research on it too, because it's all important, and what this kind of work changes lives, period.
Mhm. Mhm.
So great that that's what you're doing with that. That's great. Thank you for
I'm glad that
doing
you
it.
did that. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, oh, is there anything else you want to talk about? The future of your work, or things you think about, or
Yeah, right now I just feel like this is, you know, a relatively new thing for me, as far as on the work side of this. I'm, you know, relatively early in my tenure track. So I'm still kind of trying to put this together. So if anyone out there is interested in collaborating on anything, please let me know. But I'm really interested in, the potential impact on post-traumatic stress of, self-defense training, and how that might be helpful.
wonderful. And will you promise to come back and talk with me again when you've got some good results and some good research?
Yeah, I would love to.
Awesome. That'd be great. Well, I loved our time together, and I so appreciate you taking time out of your like super busy schedule to share your story, your empowerment journey, your amazing self-defense success story, and the research that you're doing. It's
Well,
fantastic. Thank you.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And yeah, I
And
will
come
definitely.
back.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's affirmation time. This is how I end every self-defense class. It's kind of cheesy, but it's very cool, and this is how it works. We're going to do like a little call and response. If you can say this out loud, if you can repeat after me, do it, because it's important, I think, for you to hear your own voice. But if you can't, like if you're on a crowded subway or someplace where it's embarrassing, don't worry. You can also just say it inside your head. Okay, so I'm going to say something and you're going to repeat it after me. I'm going to give you space to do that. And at the end, we're going to say yes. Here we go. Repeat after me. I am worth protecting. I love myself. I belong. I deserve to take up space on planet Earth. I am a strong and powerful person. Yes! Woohoo! And hey, as a wrap-up, will you do me a favor? Will you do all the things that you do when there's a podcast? Like, will you tell your friends? Will you subscribe? Will you come back each week, communicate with me, review this podcast? Like, all those things to help get more bandwidth, help more people find out about it. That would be super awesome. Take a deep breath. You are amazing. Thank you for being with me. See you next time.